So let's talk now World Cup final. I think there's only 3 spots, Heath, that could make this determination. One is LA, either the Rose Bowl, which I would prefer, but probably SoFi Stadium. Obviously just hosted the Super Bowl and blah, 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 blah. I'm from LA and I'm so torn and that I want it to be the Rose Bowl. I think New York, obviously MetLifeStadium has the capacity. You and I both seen games there and know it can host a good one. And then Dallas, I think needs to be thrown into consideration because of what Jerry Jones, the Cowboys owner, has built there. It is quite the cathedral to sports in general, and it can host a magnificent final as well. It's indoors, so obviously you have that complication, but the grass will be in, of course. But because it won't be hot and you can control the temperature inside, I think it's one of those 3 destinations. So for everybody listening or watching right now, LA, New York, or Dallas, where do you think the World Cup final is going to be? Heath, why don't you chime in?
I think, wow, this is tough.
New York's going to be hot. New York's going to be hot.
It's going to be hot.
But it'd only be LA and Dallas. You can control the temperature. Well, LA should be a little bit more mild than New York.
Man, this is where it gets a little complicated for the U.S. It's time zones, right? Of the global game. You're talking about a global match. This is not just for the 100,000 people that can make it to the stadium or the city that it's in. A lot of this is about TV viewership as well. This is the Super Bowl, right? Of the global game. And so when I think about it through that lens, just from the business side of that, I think like, okay, if you did West Coast, it would need to be like a noon kickoff.
Right. So everybody in the world could maximize the billions of people that would watch it. But you think in New York, in New York, you could do, I guess that would be a 3 p.m. kickoff, which you wouldn't want in the middle of August. That sounds terrible.
That would be
from a player perspective,
really rough. And that would need to be a night game, which means you lose all of Europe.
You can't do that.
And you would get
Asia.
It
could be Dallas by default.
Yeah. It just, again,
because you could
controlling the environment.
You could do noon in Dallas, and because it's a closed stadium, I guess SoFi would have a cover too. They could go a little earlier, maybe instead of you'd have a noon kickoff. But if it wasn't at the Rose Bowl, you could play.
But I mean, if you did 2 p.m. in Dallas, you would still have the time for the build-up. You would have would be 7 hours.
Dude, is it going to be Dallas?
So
is it really going to be Dallas? I feel like we're talking ourselves into Dallas hosting the World Cup final.
But we're also thinking with logic, and nothing in the soccer world, especially with regard to FIFA or with regard to I don't say FIFA, but World Cups and everything, like any sort of governed thing. There's just so much more than just being like, well, how do we get the most amount of people to? I mean, that is a big part of it, but like there's other factors. So maybe we're too focused on the kickoff time.
No, I think it makes a lot of sense, though. I mean, and now that you're rationally talking about this, leaving emotion aside, I believe that Dallas might be the best fit for the global audience because you can control the environment. That's really interesting.